in other parts of the country. This is not the kind of story that we want to hear as a people, as a government, and as a country. This means that our security and our security agencies and armed forces have to be at their best. This administration has spent 2.5 years in office out of the 4. The situation is not too good, but as an optimist, I believe that 1.5 years is a long time. In fact, in 6 months, we can make a difference by creating and sustaining a better security environment for our people.
Senate President self-assessing the performance of the National Assembly. Some Nigerians refer to as a rubber stamp National Assembly, but he believes they've been more of a stabilizer, absorbing the shocks from the economy, from the security, and from the political end. Now, let's move over to the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. There were reports unconfirmed that the February scheduled period for the holding of a convention may be rescheduled, but the caretaker committee of the party was forced on Wednesday to issue a denial saying the period goes ahead, even though as we speak, no date yet picked for that convention in February. They only promised February, no date, and subcommittees not indeed appointed to help in planning. So many are wondering how that convention will hold without all this being put in place. But some party members are insisting the convention must hold as planned, despite these shortcomings, including court cases over the faction that is the legitimate ones in several states of the Federation.
We are struggling for a critical organ of the party like the National Convention to hold. Now you ask yourself, okay, how are we going to manage the whole process of contest that will produce candidates? What the danger signal is that we may end up having a convention that may not necessarily guarantee that we'll have a healthy contest within the party.
Definitely the convention will hold, but you must allow those who have been saddled with responsibility to come up with the most appropriate time, which I believe they've hinted us before that it will be in February, which I believe they are putting their final and finishing touches to the mode and conduct and the date that will be chosen. So for me, it's still work in progress, and we must give them that necessary support and give them that benefit of doubt to help us to have a very successful convention.
Okay, after the convention by mid-2022, most of the parties are expected to organize their convention to pick a candidate. Those aspiring to represent the different political parties have been publicly announcing their ambition, though not formally making a declaration. And of course, you've been following the news in recent days, you see a good number of them. Some others may be compelled to join that race. Some of their supporters are saying they will drag them into it. Some supporters of some big politicians have also said they will go to court to get an order to compel the man they follow to also run for the presidency. We'll leave you as we get set for our discourse on politics of crude oil in Nigeria with the statements of those who have made open declaration to join the presidential contest in 2023.
Categorical yes. I've informed the president of my intention, but I've not informed the Nigerians yet. I'm still consulting. I have the confidence, the vision, the capacity to build on the foundation of Mr. President and turn Nigeria better. I've done that with commitment and unyielding, in Lagos State. You've seen that experience and the capacity to turn things around.
I'm not against Tinubu. If it's not his area and the party says he should go, well, the party is supreme because it's the I'm only waiting for the party. But to run for president, I think I'm the most prepared. And Nigeria, I have done it before in 2007. And if I consider to run, I'll be the most formidable in Lagos Square, as you ask. I have everything it takes to face any candidate. Obasanjo has been president for 8 years. Osinbajo is doing 8 years as vice president. And no Igbo man since independent has been democratically elected president. So it's always good to think of what is reasonable.
I believe that with what I put in place in the past 6 years plus, that I will be running for presidency on the platform of APC. So I told him, and of course, he believes that whoever that wants to run for president of this country must have to consult widely and go to all the leaders. And we must do everything to remove ethnicity and our religion in our polity so that this country can grow.
Do you agree that Atiku Abubakar should run for the president of Federal Republic of Nigeria? Yes! So, ladies and gentlemen, we must look for a mechanic, a super mechanic who can unite this country, who can provide visionary leadership for this country, who can fix the economy of this country. He has done it before. He has experience, he has the knowledge, he has the education, and he has the capacity and will. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that given an opportunity, Waziri Atiku Abubakar will turn around this country.
Thank you so much for staying with us. You get to hear more hopefuls throw their hands in the rings and make announcements as to their intentions to run for the biggest office in the land. And part of the problems the new man or woman is expected to solve will be the issue of resource control, issue of restructuring, how crude oil, black gold has become a curse rather than a blessing to Nigeria, how to make the country less reliant on it by way of diversification, by ensuring that the usual rhetorics and promises to diversify the economy are not usually met. But for our discourse, we'll be taking a look at the politics of crude oil. Yes, there is the politics of crude oil, ownership and control. Of course, we told you earlier, the president even alluded to it, saying the discovery of oil in 2 states in the northeast, Bauchi and Gombe, have helped to balance the politics of crude oil in Nigeria. Before now, oil producing states are from southern Nigeria, but the discovery in the northeast will, to an extent, tilt it towards the equilibrium, as it were. At the time, statesmen are weighing in on who actually owns the crude oil. Aya Debanjo joined the fray yesterday, standing with Edwin Clark to insist that it belongs to the people of the area and not to the federal government, as former President Olusegun Obasanjo insists. Joining me now to take a look at this is Ankyo Briggs, environmental and human rights activist. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Before we come to the issue of ownership, let's start with the politics. Of course, at the global level, you have politics of oil, OPEC, the cartel playing a great role, the advanced countries also pulling the strings, in flexing and perhaps manipulating the prices. So it's not just at the local level that you have politics of crude oil, even at the international level. How will you start this discuss?
Well, I mean, definitely the fact that we, Africa as a whole, but specifically Nigeria, and then of course the owners of the land, and therefore the owners of whatever is found in the land, have no say in how crude oil is sold, how much crude oil is sold for. And this is not just only crude oil, it's all other resources, natural resources that are found in Africa or in Nigeria. I mean, gold is being carted out of Nigeria as we speak now, and nobody is aware of how much gold is being carted out. So it's not just oil and gas. It really is a pity that, first of all, we tend to talk about oil and tend to forget that there is gas. And as a matter of fact, the deposit of gas is far more higher from what we are told, because as a country, we have no idea of how much oil we have and how much is left and how much is taken out on a daily basis. Nigeria does not know. Why do I say this? Because the oil companies tell them how much they take out. And the same applies to gas. Gas is higher, and gas is more, we have more deposit of gas, and yet we still don't know how much gas is taken out and how much it is therefore sold for. So it really is not just an issue only for us who are crying of injustice as of not accessing what is on our land, but really and truly of a people all over Africa that own any form of natural resources. Right now, Africa and Nigeria is being colonized economically by Chinese, and even the Russians are moving in. So the problem is wide and expansive, and we're not even able to discuss it. But coming back to the issue of who owns the oil in the Niger Delta, that has been an ongoing argument from the days of palm oil. It has been an ongoing argument between us and the British. They were cutting it away. Now we find ourselves in the area of crude oil. They are cutting it away. And yet, when it was things to do with cocoa, with hide and skin, with all kinds of agricultural produce, it was not like that, and that's the problem.
And maybe, perhaps, maybe because of the nature of crude oil deposits, it's under the ground and not on it. Because if you take a look at the Land Use Act, anything under the ground is owned by the federal government, but anything on top of it, like the lands as it were vested on the state governments via the governor. So when the cocoas and the palm oil are on the ground, ownership could now be to the state government and individuals, but under it, solid minerals, crude oil, according to the constitution, the federal government.
Yes, I was just, I'm happy you mentioned the constitution, because you see, people in our arguments, we go backwards and forwards. 1960 constitution, 1963 constitution, regionalism, all of these things. These are part of our truth. These are part of our historical facts. When it was cocoa was being planted. But now, look at when cocoa was being planted. Who had the cocoa? Where was it coming from? And how much of that cocoa was going to the region where it was being planted and harvested? 50%. It's the same thing with granite pyramid, whatever it was at that time. Where did it go to? It went to the north. Now the question we are asking is that, how then, what was the thinking? How did we come about the situation where, when it became crude oil, all of a sudden it now became under the ground and therefore belongs to federal government? Who said that? It's still the people in politics that made that decision. When you plant granite or when you plant cocoa, where do you plant it? Do you plant it in the air? You plant it in the ground. So it's comical to say crude oil is coming from under the ground and that cocoa is coming from where? Where is cocoa coming from? On top of the ground? No, you still have to put it under the ground. But you see, these are not really, for me, the issues and the realities. It's the injustice of it. which is unacceptable to us. The injustice very simply is we own the land. We are not tribesmen. We're not tribes people running around carrying spears with some little loincloths around our waist in 2022. We are educated and exposed people and persons and want to develop ourselves. And we find ourselves in a situation where some people sit down and decide that the crude oil in my land, by some magical constitution that favors only a particular set of Nigeria, that was brought about by the military and imposed on the people of Nigeria against the people of my region mainly, and then coming to say that you cannot even say that the land that this thing is on is yours, and therefore the land is yours. By law of reasoning all over the world, the owner of the land is also the owner of what is on. Okay, how is it that we own the land, the oil under it belongs to federal government according to some argument, and yet the pollution that goes with the exploration of oil and gas belongs to us? What type of reasoning is that? And who are the people that think it is okay for me and my people to be quiet under this oppressive thinking? It is not acceptable that my people should be dying, that I should be exposed to cancer, God forbid, because people, 27 states in Nigeria, do not have anything to bring to the table for all of us to share.
You made a good point on the issue of when your plant is under the ground, and if it's under the ground, it should belong to the federal government based on what the law says. But when it springs up, perhaps the output is the difference there. But you made reference to that constitution, which I also raised earlier. Was it the mistake that was made? You said some politicians slotted it in there. Was it a mistake to have asked the federal government vested ownership of mineral resources on the federal government?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Look, when Abacha died, and we all know what Abacha was leading up to before he died. When Abacha died, Obasanjo was in jail. Abdul Salami took over. We all know the story. And in the time of Obasanjo taking over, he took over with a prepared constitution. Now, who are the people that wrote this constitution? It's not the people of Nigeria that wrote this constitution. The military got a group of people together across Nigeria, the way they usually do from all parts of Nigeria, and now say the people wrote it. No, the people did not write it. Now, the problem was and remains the fact that politicians did not argue against this form of imposition of the 1999 Constitution. And by that I mean the president-elect at that time, Obasanjo, who took over after being released from jail and now became the president, therefore was an elected president, albeit a retired general. If he is really a fully democratic thinking man, he should have known that the way the Constitution, and I do say he does know, that the way the Constitution was written is not constitutional and is not democratic. The military have no right to write constitutions. The military, all through the history of the military in Nigeria, have set aside constitutions. They don't write constitution. They just set aside constitution. But in 1998, 99, they ended up by giving us a constitution which more or less, or most people who study constitution and all of us who argue on the issues of justice have accepted that is a military decree. It's a military decree. So that is not a constitution. And that's why the insistence has always been, let us have a new constitution. Other countries, as recent as a couple of years ago, countries across the world are changing their constitution. What is so peculiar about Nigeria that Nigeria will not want to move forward? We need a new constitution. From that new constitution, we will be able to restructure Nigeria. The federal government should have no right in poking its nose into universities in Rivers State, into primary schools in my local government area. Those are not their responsibilities. Their responsibilities should be very minimal, and we know that. So they should restructure Nigeria and then devolve power to the states if actually they want Nigeria to stay together. And that is the key. Do we actually want Nigeria to stay together? This is the key of the question.
Okay.
And if we say yes, then what are the terms
Now,
under which Nigeria
you accepted that.
We should not be afraid to speak.
You concluded that the constitution was faulty the way it was evolved, and in vesting control of mineral resources on the federal government and not the states and the people, as it were. You also advocated for a change of the constitution, restructuring. What would you want that new move to achieve? Is it in the context of the age-long campaign for resource control, mostly coming from the Niger Delta?
See, I mean, in Nigeria, when we talk about resource control, people make it to seem as if it's a crime for a people to say that they want to be in control of what is on their land, of what is on their region. Look, before independence, we had regionalism. And this regionalism, what is regionalism, for crying out loud? Regionalism meant that Awolowo could make it possible that Yorubas attended school free of charge. Now, what he did, which was magnanimous, was that in some cases, because people have testified and they are not Yorubas, that ended up benefiting from that regionalism, the benefit of regionalism, which was meant for the Yorubas, with other people who are not Yoruba people benefited from it. It is right that it should be like that. But it is not a right that because Yorubas are doing free education, that everybody else must have free education. And that was what eventually destroyed the concept of the European Union. I won't go into that, but I know that that was what destroyed eventually the European Union. Why? Because the British came to realize that they were paying a lot more and sacrificing a lot more in the area of education, of healthcare, and of development. You know, so it's the same thing here in Nigeria. We cannot run away from the fact that the people of the Niger Delta region, the 4 major oil producing states, out of the 100% of oil and gas, are producing close to 95% of oil and gas in Nigeria. And it boggles the mind. How come the whole of Nigeria, the whole of the 36 states, 19 from the north, are all beneficiaries, to the extent that when they share allocation by local government, the north is getting 419 shares of local government allocation and 19 states of state allocation. Kano is getting 44 of what Bayelsa is producing, and Bayelsa is getting 8 of what Bayelsa is producing. How does any reasonable mind think that we should not say that this is unfair and unacceptable? It is unfair, it is unacceptable, and we have to sit down and accept this reality in Nigeria if we truly believe that we are fair. We're also facing this situation. It's everywhere. It's even in the political space. You have a situation, 12 months to election. We have people going around believing and trying to convince Nigerians that there is nothing wrong with another northerner another Muslim, another Fulani person to govern Nigeria again after 8 years of Buhari. It is unfair. It is not only them that can produce presidents of Nigeria. It has to be fair. And so we cannot look. I will not run away from confronting these issues, because these issues are the truths that we must confront in Nigeria. If Jonathan had done 8 years and then we start shouting that another Niger Delta person should do 8 years, when Obasanjo wanted to do third tenure, was he allowed to do third tenure? Was another Yoruba person allowed to be prepared for the presidency? Let us be real. Let Nigeria be adult.
But there are some from the most contenders in the APC are from the Southwest. Most contenders in the All Progressives Congress are from the Southwest. After 8 years of the presidency, and of course, after another 8 years gap, another 8 years of vice presidency. Does it not suggest that in a democracy, every person, as enshrined in our constitution, can give it a go?
Yes. See, look, we have northern Nigeria and we have southern Nigeria. In northern Nigeria, we have 3 zones. They set it up. We didn't set it up. The political cabal put it together. We have 3 zones in northern Nigeria, 3 zones in southern Nigeria. Now, in these 3 zones, it goes to the north. Obasanjo did the slot of the southwest. Then Yaradua took over. And I loved that man. Yaradua took over. And he died, unfortunately. We will never know what Yaradua could have done for this country. We can only speculate. And then Jonathan did a constitutional 1 year. I don't buy into that, what do you call it? Anyway. It was a constitutional 1 year that Jonathan did. And then he did an elective 4 years and accepted that he lost an election. Well, if he lost an election, I didn't run for election. So if he says he lost it, then he lost it. And then Buhari took over. He has done 8 years. It must come to the south. I don't see why people will say, oh, you cannot say must. Why can't we say must? They were saying must when Jonathan was there. They said it must come back to the north. So why can't we
time for us to go on a break? Time for us to go on a break. When we come back, we'll stick with the issue of politics of oil. Some discoveries in northern Nigeria. What does it bring into the polity? Do stay with us.
Issues are critical, germane to Nigeria's democratic process.
Politicians can only be seen maybe on television by judges. They should not intermingle, because once you intermingle, then you destroy the systems.
When the personalities are big, important to national discourse.
When you reach certain stage of power and you demonstrate arrogance to the extreme, there's no other thing that will happen to you and to fall.
When the developments are seemingly complex, confounded like a 1,000-piece jigsaw, that's when we require bold, sound, and analytical minds to help put the pieces together. Jigsaw with Benga Arileba, now showing Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. on AIT. Jigsaw, demystifying the issues. Our dream, the Nigeria we need, is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT.
Thank you so much for staying with us. Environmental and human rights activist Ankyo Briggs has been with me, and we are taking a look at politics of oil. We have moved from ownership, perhaps. We'll come back to the controversy and the raging debate over it to the other parts. Before, of course, I remember Oloibori, where the oil was first extracted in 1958. Usually, at the initial stages, it was more of states in the Niger Delta, South-South. Over time, we started seeing operations a little bit in southeastern states, southwest states, Ondo, southeast Abia, Imo, and now the president told us discoveries in some form of commercial quantity in Gombe and Bauchi states. To him, it will help to balance the politics of crude oil in Nigeria. How will you react to that?
Okay, I was actually going on. I didn't know that I was not even being heard. Okay, fine. Look, if you discover oil, anywhere you discover oil, it stays there. That's where you discover the oil. What that does is that by the law and the constitution today, it makes you oil producing. It doesn't make you Niger Delta. And you see, that is why even when the NDDC was formed, it was wrong to call it the Niger Delta Development Commission. It should have maintained the name of UMPADEC, or at the very best, it should have been called the Oil Producing State Development Commission or whatever. Now we can see the errors of things like that. Okay, if you say that you have found oil in Gombe or Katsina, wherever you say you have found oil, if you're not bringing it to the table, if the federal government is not taking it all and giving you 13%, you're not oil producing. You're not. You cannot just say, I found oil, therefore you're oil producing. No, you're not. So, now, if Gombe finds oil, does that now bring them into the Niger Delta Development Commission? No, it does not. You know, so we purposely allow these arguments to be put into politics by politicians to ferment problems and to achieve whatever they want to achieve, and then throw it out in the open to people like you and I to begin to discuss. What is so difficult to understand? That if Gombe has found oil, how much crude oil are they lifting? Or how much did they lift last year? How much did they lift this month? How much crude oil is coming? You know, how much gas is coming? These are facts we need to know. So when you say, when the government says Gombe is oil producing, big deal. I don't care who is producing oil or who is not producing oil. It's not in my state, so I'm not laying claim to it. But because the law says that if oil is found, it belongs to federal government, then let federal government go and take the oil that it has found in Gombe and sell it, and then give 13% to Gombe. What's the big deal? I don't understand the big deal. Or is it that Gombe now wants to become a part of Niger Delta? The Niger Delta is a specific area. It's a geographical area. And if you're not in the Niger Delta, no amount of constitutional input or amendment is going to make you to come from the Niger Delta. You're either in the geographical area of the Niger Delta or you're not. And you can be oil producing even if you're in the moon and you say you're oil producing. Good for you. But are we all sharing from the oil that Gombe is claiming to have? No. So why are we saying Gombe is producing oil or any other state? They're not oil producing.
So many are wondering why the president made that statement. Is it that it's based on the fact that all the talks about, all the bragging rights about who produces oil has been from the south, and this talks about the north being parasitic on the south and dependent on oil revenue? Now there's discovery. Yes, you said not producing yet. Discovery could be part of strategic reserve, maybe a reserve for future exploration and exploitation and all that. Is it that the president meant that no part of the country can beat its chest to say we are the sole producers of oil, that every other part can also produce now?
Well, I mean, look, if oil producing is now dependent on any state waking up and declaring that they are oil producing, then that's fine. If that's the way we want to run Nigeria, then that's fine. But like I said, you know, I'm not in the mind of the president, but what I do know is that politicians are Confucianists, and they are Confucianists because they themselves are confused. They're wickedly confused. And where they're not confused, they just attempt to confuse the rest of Nigerians. If not, how is anybody saying they are oil producing? My simple question is this now. If the president says that Gombe is oil producing,
well, to put the record straight, the president did not say Gombe and Bauchi are oil producing, but oil have been discovered there, at least not producing yet.
Okay, fine. Thanks for the correction. But whether he said they are oil producing or whether he says oil have been found, the point is this: that if they are not bringing oil to the kitty, if you like, to the table, if you like, for sharing and taking 13%, then they are not oil producing. If they say they have found oil and it is not coming out, all they are saying is that they have oil. That's all. That's all they're saying. You know? So the fact that anybody is saying that they are going to cook does not mean that they are eating the food that they say they are going to cook. You know, so I don't understand even this discussion. If it isn't, like I said, that politicians in Nigeria are confused, and because they are confused, they confuse the rest of Nigerians. And when they are not confused, they purposely confuse Nigerians. I ask again, if a state is not bringing oil to the table for sharing in today's Nigeria, why are you telling us that oil has been found? Okay, so fine. Okay, oil has been found. Then what?
Okay, now let's take a look at this situation. I made mention of it at the beginning. The rhetorics and promises of diversifying the economy, but at the end of the day, will still depend on oil revenue, even when non-oil sources are increasing their contribution, the percentage of contribution they are making to the federation account, taxes collection and all that increasing by the day. But should we not, by this time, as we have seen in other climes, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, even Saudi Arabia, moving away from oil and expendable resource to other areas, we appear to be fixated on crude oil. How will you speak to this?
Okay, well, the issue of the economy of Nigeria, when we're talking about the economy of Nigeria, we have had government after government that have no intention of doing anything outside exploring or collecting rent. Let me even remove exploring, because it's not Nigeria that is exploring. It's the oil companies. They are partners. They are joint partners in oil exploration that is actually doing the work. Nigeria is just at the end of the month, at the end of the year, just collecting money. It's like rent. Nigeria is being paid rent, and that's what we say that we also should be doing. We also should pay rent from what is coming from our region to Nigeria. Now, the fact that we have had government after government that has not gone into agriculture, that has not gone into fishery. If we remember, Nigeria was an agrarian country before oil was found, and then everybody, the government encouraged people to move away from the natural ways of sustaining their economy and feeding themselves as a people. So today, even Nigeria, our basic food, we can't produce enough for ourselves. What we need from the natural resources that we have, we cannot produce enough for ourselves. We have refineries that are not functioning. We have we have cocoa. We can do cocoa. We can do ginger. We can do granite. We can do coconut. There is so much agricultural produce that we can do that other people are sustaining their nations with. All of it is in Nigeria, and yet nothing. We've had government after government that does not have the capacity to have a plan and put it through for the sake of Nigerians today and tomorrow. Everybody wants to finish with oil. Look, nobody is saying that the federal government should do all of these things. What we are saying is that the federal government should hands off all the things that the state should do and let we, the indigents of those states, deal in the pockets of our state. That way, it becomes easier and simpler to contain and to maintain and to develop. When you purposely concentrate on just one produce, one product, in a country that has almost millions of different things we can do and things that can be derived from these natural resources, it just shows incapacity. It shows lack of vision. It shows inability of people that have governed us. We're hearing people saying, I have the capacity. They don't. They do not have the capacity. I have more capacity than these people who are claiming capacity, because we know what to do. Nigerians know what is good for us. And then you have people coming up now, falling all over themselves, speaking all kinds of English, positioning themselves to govern Nigeria again. Look, it's up to Nigerians. If Nigerians look at this crop of people that are coming up from all over the place, even from my region, from all over the place, and saying that they want to govern us, they want to rule Nigeria, and we allow them, then we have nobody else to blame. Who are we going to blame? Okay. The Chinese have moved into Africa because there is an opening for them to move into Africa. And that's through corruption. You know, so the reality is that we've not been able to find and pick the right people for politics in Nigeria. Okay. Until we, the people...
You mentioned the fact that successive governments have relied on crude oil. At the time, other resources, mineral resources are in abundance, I can say. Almost every of them, including uranium, are in Nigeria. Exploitation by government legitimately low. Most of these exploitation have been illegal exploitation. On our news a few days ago, so Chinese being caught for engaging in illegal mining and all that. Why is it that successive governments look away from a veritable source of revenue, why others, foreigners and some unscrupulous Nigerians are tapping into it, this, making money by themselves or for themselves?
Corruption. Corruption, what is that? It's corruption. See, you know, like, if I say what I'm going to say now, some people will say, thank you, you know. No, how can one man be in control of cement in the whole of a country like Nigeria? How can one man alone be in control of sugar, tomatoes, spaghetti? How?
There are three big companies. There are three big companies producing cement in Nigeria, not one man. Same with sugar, more than 3 big companies.
If we are saying that because we have smaller sugar companies, so for it to seem that the equation is balanced, it justifies what I have said before, that politicians are confusionists. They confuse, they purposely confuse. Okay, what about the refinery? How can a country like Nigeria that claims to own the oil resources, has a Ministry of Petroleum, has NNPC that they have now done, I don't know what they've done with the NNPC, I'm not even interested anymore, that has had 3 refineries from time immemorial. For the past 60 years, has not been able to even produce enough kerosene, diesel, and petrol for internal consumption, now sit in power and justify why one man can own a refinery that is bigger than all the 3 refineries combined, and nobody is willing to raise it as an issue. I will raise it as an issue, because the crude oil It may make economic sense to some people, but it does not make justifiable sense to me as somebody who is from the region that is dying from the pollution of this
Some may ask, some may ask that, and we have been told over 25 licenses at some point. If you can you hear me? The Department of Petroleum Resources and even the Minister of Petroleum Resources have said for years now, 25 licenses to build refineries given out. Is it that they have not done their own? The owners of these licenses are from across Nigeria. Perhaps we should ask, why are they not building these refineries?
You see, Amici, this is the problem I have with the way Nigerian government gives us information. All right, fine. 25 licenses. Today, let them list, let the presidency, let the Ministry of Petroleum. My brother is the Minister of State of Petroleum, while the president is the Minister of Petroleum. I am calling on the presidency, I am on the president, I'm calling on my brother, Timothy Silva, to release the names of the companies and the people that own these companies that they gave the refineries to. You will be surprised who owns these refineries that they are talking about. I don't know if you want to remember that some years back, when we were complaining about not being able to get product into the riverine areas, into the creeks and the mangroves and the swamps, into the oceanic communities, if you recall, NNPC claimed that they have put together a process where we will now have floating refineries. I raised this issue at the 2014 National Conference, and I asked that where are the floating refineries that the NNPC plus the government at that time, I can't quite remember whether it was Obasanjo or Yaradua. It probably was a transition from one to the other. But there is supposed to be floating refineries, specifically for the waterine area, because you can't have floating refinery in Katsina. You can have floating refinery in Kola and Soku and Delta and Bayelsa. Where are those floating refineries? You know, so when the government puts up these statistics and this claim that they do when they say, oh, they're giving so much to NDDC. If they're giving so much to NDDC, where is the money that they are giving to NDDC? How come it is that it enters and then it moves back out again? You know, so when the government create these scenarios in people's head and confuse people to start arguing about the irrelevance of what the government is saying and leaving the core, the meat of what the government is saying. So what I'm therefore saying is that the government must let go of the things that it is holding on to. What are those things? Those are the things, the reasons why we're saying restructure Nigeria. If you restructure Nigeria, power will devolve to the states, to the states for them to control their future and their present. And if my governor is dealing oil with the oil companies and then he steals the money, that's my business. It's my fault. I can't blame anybody else. I have to deal with my governor. Now, if the government is in charge of the oil and then gives pittance to my state, I call 13% pittance. When you give pittance to my state, and then you now tell me I should forget the 87% you're keeping for yourself, which was not so in the days of cocoa and in the days of granola. You are now taking 87% and then asking me to go and fight my governor. I will not fight my governor. You are the primary problem that I have, not my governor. Because whatever faults that any governor has in any of these our states that is crying out against injustice, what we are suffering is coming from the federal government. And yes, the governors or the senators or whoever are taking advantage of those circumstances and situations because of politics, then the problem is coming from the federal government. Perhaps some may disagree with me. That's okay. I don't agree with everything.
Pose that question may be guided by the principle of charity begins at home. Perhaps they want you to begin to insist on transparency, prudence, accountability right from home. But beyond that, you were right about floating refineries. There were promises that there should be floating refineries in the Niger Delta. We have not seen them. Apart from floating refineries, there were also promises of modular refineries, smaller mini refineries. We have not seen them. Time will not allow us to really go into this, why the refineries are not working and the ownership structure and all that. But we have to thank you so much for giving us your time today. Ankyo Briggs, environmental and human rights activists, weighing in on the politics of crude oil in Nigeria. Maybe we should have added politics of gas. You rightly mentioned gas to last more in Nigeria and becoming of greater value to the country.
Yeah, we must address that issue, Amechi, quickly, because you see, I think that the government of Nigeria is seriously playing down the issue of gas. Gas is making more money for this country than petroleum is, and the government is not talking about gas. Why is the government not talking about, or have they also found gas in Gombe now?
Well, I thought the Petroleum Industry Act laid some more emphasis on gas, but these are issues that will continue to weigh on. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on the program, Ankyo Briggs. And thank you also.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Our viewers for being part of the program. My name is Amici, and we will return on Friday with another edition. Till then, be a good citizen.